Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to show you the W6 N3300 Exklusive. This is the smallest electronic sewing machine in the W6 WERTARBEIT series. This machine comes, of course, like all other machines, with a 10-year warranty. And although it's an electronic sewing machine, this is a comprehensive 10-year warranty here, namely also for the electronic system and naturally for the mechanical parts. The machine is very versatile. There are 120 sewing programs that this machine can sew. It comes with a bobbin winder that stops as soon as the bobbin is full. The machine is also equipped with an automatic thread tension unit that automatically adjusts to thick or thin fabrics. This means that you no longer need to readjust the thread tension manually. It has a needle stop up-down function, so it's no longer necessary to turn the needle up or down by the hand wheel. If you want to leave the needle in a different position, you only need to press this button. Press once is needle down, press again is needle up. It has a stepless speed controller. You can pre-select the sewing speed to your liking. No matter how hard you step on the foot pedal, the machine will never run faster than the speed you have preset here. Another new feature of W6 WERTARBEIT is the turtle function. If you press this turtle button while sewing, the machine will run very slowly. If you reach a tricky area or the end of the seam, this comes in very handy. It makes it easier to stop in time. Then this is the backstitching button. It's for securing your seams at the beginning and end. This is the start-stop button. This start-stop button is currently lit red. This means that the machine is not capable of sewing. If I lower the presser foot, it means the machine is ready to sew and you can start. But the main function of the start-stop button is that you can sew without having to use the foot pedal. That means you can disconnect the foot pedal. By pressing the start-stop button, the machine starts running and you regulate the speed up here with the stepless speed control. This is the first W6 machine to be equipped with an LED light. The benefit of LEDs is that they have a very long service life. In addition, they are very bright and you'll not have to replace the light over the service life of the machine. The machine is equipped with an automatic needle threader and also with a bobbin thread automatic unit. With this bobbin thread automatic unit, you thread the bobbin thread and you don't need to bring it up manually anymore. The machine does that by itself. Naturally, the machine has a free arm, so if you want to sew trouser legs, you can use that. And it has a control panel over here. The control panel is labeled in German, but the operating instructions are also available in English. Also, the instruction manual is clearly structured and features many illustrations for a better understanding. These blue buttons in the lower section of the control panel are quick select buttons. So here you can choose the programs that you need every day. Straight stitch, zigzag and buttonhole are the most frequently used stitches in sewing. You don't have to search for the program number, just press the shortcut button. And the quick select buttons also include 2 decorative stitches of the 120 in total. That is, with this button you can either select decorative stitch number 35 or you use it to access one of the 120 decorative stitches with numbers higher than 35. So you don't have to start at number 1 and go through all programs with the plus and minus buttons. Each stitch you select has a number. If you have entered the number, the stitch is sewn as it's illustrated up here. This means that stitch length and stitch width are preset by electronics in the machine. Now, of course, you may like to change these values. For that purpose, we've included the length and width functions here. Using these buttons, you can manually adjust the stitch length and stitch width and set them the way you want. With this button, you can permanently select whether the machine should always have the needle up or always down at the end of the sewing process. And you can choose that the machine does not do conventional backstitching, but secures the seam on the spot. This means that the machine can do spot stitching, which does not destroy the stitch pattern of such a beautiful decorative stitch. I'd now like to show you how to load the bobbin of the W6 N3300 Exklusive and also how to thread correctly. The winding and threading steps are very important for getting accurate stitch patterns afterwards. First, we put the thread spool on the spool pin. You place a spool stopper in front of it here, so that's secure. You start threading here. Guide the thread behind number 1, then down and around the silver hook. Back up and to the right. This is a very important part, because that's the tension disc for winding, and now it's important to hold the thread tight. Hold it and firmly pull it under the disc. It's very important to get the thread under here. This is the pre-tension. Otherwise, it won't work properly. Then you take the thread, pull it through the hole in the bobbin, place the bobbin onto the winder, and then you can start winding. Press to the right. Look, if you hold this thread end lightly now, press the foot pedal and then I'll start running. Stop after a few revolutions. and cut the thread end as you don't need that anymore. So now you can load the bobbin. The machine will stop automatically at the end. There's a little beeping sound. I still had the pedal pressed. I'll release the foot pedal now. The machine stopped automatically because this metal lever here measures how full the bobbin is, and then the machine stops by itself. Shift the bobbin over to the left, take it off and cut the thread. So the next thing I want to do is to insert the bobbin. That means I have to open the lid down here. Pull the black button to the right, the cover pops out. This is the bobbin cover, and you need to place the bobbin in there. The most important thing comes next. The thread must reel off on the left side. When you pull the bobbin must rotate counterclockwise. Drop it in. There's an arrow here. Pull the thread behind that and through this channel. And remember one thing, don't just loosely place the thread, pull it to tauten it. Hold the bobbin and pull the thread so it's properly in the channel. Now guide it behind this elliptic shape and you can cut the thread here. That's your bobbin thread threaded. Close the cover. Now before threading the upper thread, please press needle stop down and needle stop up once. This makes sure your needle is 100% in the correct position. Always use the small spool stopper for any regular size spools. The big one really is only for very large spools. Now the next steps are not difficult at all. Just follow the numbers and the arrows. That is, up here is number 1, go behind that, down and under the silver hook, then up and to the left, and always hold the thread with your other hand so it's nice and tight and also slips into all the guides properly. Look, here's number 4, up here is 5, now you go down through the last channel. You have to go behind this hook just above the needle, and now you can pull the threader down. Press it. This threader snaps into place at the bottom. That means it's waiting for you. Hook the thread in here, pull it over, on the lower metal part of the threader to the back, up and back here. I just have to make sure that the camera catches everything. Let me see, up here is the hook for the thread cutter. That is, the thread is now in the threader, in front of the needle, and up here in the cutter. Now simply press the threader down to disengage and the thread is automatically pulled through the needle. Please do not pull to the front, but pull the loop in the back. Put the thread under the foot and then you can start sewing. Now place your fabric underneath, lower the foot and press the foot pedal. Here we go. You don't need to bring the bobbin thread up, it works instantly. So first of all, now that I've threaded the machine, I'd like to sew a pair of jeans. That is, I want to fold this flat felt seam here on this jeans, just like you'd sew around the trouser leg, and that's what I'm going to do. What do I have to do for that? I need the regular A1 program for this. That's straight stitch, it's automatically set when you switch on the machine. But you should choose a different stitch length. The preset length is 2.5 and using the plus key I now move to 4.0 for the jeans. If you're sewing regular cotton, set the length at about 3.0. Alright, I'm going to take off the free arm. The trouser leg goes over the free arm here and the machine can start sewing. You see, I now have a stitch length of 4.0. I'm approaching this bulky bit and you can see the machine is really tough. Nothing rattles, nothing wobbles. I'm just sewing over there. So the needle automatically remains up now. Raise the foot, take out the fabric, cut the thread and you see, the machine didn't skip any stitches. That looks super clean and neat. The next thing we want to do is to sew sturdy jeans seams. When you want to close the side seams of a pair of jeans, a nice thick and sturdy stitching would be handy. Often you try to get hold of thicker thread, but it may be hard to find or you don't get a matching color. This machine has a very sturdy seam, program A4. A4 is a triple stitched seam. With this triple stitched seam, the end result looks like an original seam of a pair of RTW jeans. I'll select that now, so I press Program first. I'm at program A1, A2, A3, A4, that's about it. Position your fabric and start. The machine does 3 stitches back and forth in one spot, and you get a seam that looks like an original jeans seam. So that's already enough. I stop here. The needle is automatically up. Lift the foot, cut the threads, and that's it. This is our original jeans seam. The next thing we want to do, the machine is capable of automatic backstitching. I said earlier that we have a backstitching button on the machine here. But we also have programs with which the machine backstitches automatically. This is program A2 or A3 up here. What's the difference between them? With one, the needle is in the center. With the other, it is on the left. Let's use program A3. At the program selector, choose A3. The machine now automatically sews 4 stitches forward and sews these 4 stitches back without you having to press anything. So you always have the same number of backstitching stitches and then you're ready to go. When you get to the end, you can press the turtle button first, then the machine runs nice and slow. And then you press the backstitching button and the machine secures the seam, 4 stitches back and the other 4 forward again. This always gives you the same number of backstitching stitches. That's extremely neat. The machine stops and also beeps when it's done. Lift the foot and cut the threads. There you have it. Super neat backstitching. So the next thing we want to take a look at is stretch fabric. Now, if you have a really stretchy fabric and use your regular A1 program with it, then you'll have the problem that you won't be able to comfortably put on your garments. Let me just quickly sew this to show you. Now, just by looking at the seam, it looks great, nothing seems wrong. Needle is up, take out the fabric and cut the threads. But if you are trying to pull this over your head, the thread snaps. The seam is broken. We don't want that, so we need a stretchy stitch. The Stretchy Stitch program of this machine is program A5. What do I have to do? I need to set it down here. I'm currently at A1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the Oblique straight stitch, which stretches quite fantastically. You see, the machine goes back and forth and slightly overlaps the individual stitches. The advantage over a short zigzag stitch is, when you put this on, the stitching line stays opaque. It doesn't pull open, so that's already enough. Take it out, cut it off properly. And now you can pull your fabric. Pull as much as you want, nothing will happen. The stitch stays in. The next thing I want to show you is applique stitches. With these stitches you can get really creative. Let's fit the extension table again, so we have a larger working surface. I now want to set program A8, so press Programs, there, A8 already in. We need to look at the length. 0.5 is fine for applique. For stitch width, 3.0 is fine. 5.0 is set automatically, but 3.0 is better. You'll get around the curves better. Simply lower your foot and start sewing. Now you see, I'm using the regular presser foot. That's okay. You see, it would work. But if you want to be really perfect and if you want to see where your stitching is actually going, we've got something for you. We can use the transparent applique foot. Just press the button at the back. The foot falls off. Now place the applique foot under the shank. Now you can really see how your stitches are formed and where they are placed. Look, much better this way. There, that's the thing. That's a really nice way to applique. Now you could also sew various shapes with it. You can sew curves or corners, so that's not a problem. That works well. The alternative that we have would be program A9. Now what we've just done is the classic applique stitch with a sewing machine. So you see, you can sew either right on the edge of the fabric or in the fabric if you want to make shapes or any other designs. Now if you choose program A9, let me just select that. There's the 9 set. I can leave the foot like that. Then it looks like a hand applique blanket stitch. That means the machine sews on the right side and then moves over to the left every few stitches. So let's take that out. That's a real difference between the 2 stitch patterns, but both are possible. And both look nice. This is a matter of taste and also depends on the material that you use. The next thing that we want to do, we can also mend rips and holes with the machine. I'll try to rip my fabric. That's strong. I need my scissors to demonstrate that. So, for mending, please select program B0. How do I get to B? Press the plus button here and then the minus button for 0 here. Then I need the length. That's where I really need to go down. Let's use 0.4 and the width can remain at 5. That's not a problem. Place some interfacing or some other fabric underneath, then you can start sewing. Sew over the torn area twice to make a really sturdy seam. You see, the machine does 3 stitches to the right and 3 stitches to the left, and then we get a decent mending seam. You hear the machine runs smoothly and very quietly. It's stable and doesn't wobble. So we have finished. The needle is up again. Take it out, cut the threads, and when you look closely, here on the side are a few loose threads. So you could sew over those again, but you can already see it's a real success. So the next thing we want to do is an overlock stitch. For overlocking we need a special foot, that is presser foot C. The program we use for this is program B7 here. We've already set the B range programs. Now let's take a look. Press the program button so that the LED lights up. Currently we're at B0, so we go up to 7. But you don't have to do anything else at all. The stitch is set to automatically match foot C. Now just change your presser foot, done. Now let me use a piece of blue fabric so you can clearly see the stitches. What I want to do is sewing two fabrics together and finish the edges at the same time. Now previously you finished both raw edges with a zigzag stitch, then you placed them together and stitched the actual seam. You don't have to do that now. This machine does everything in one operation. So off we go. This foot also comes with a guiding edge so you can keep your fabric straight. So the needle automatically remains up. You see, the fabrics are sewn together and the edges are finished. Now, when I turn the right side out, you see right away this sleeve is completely finished. No problem at all. There it is. Saves a lot of time. So what else have we got? The next thing I want to show you is a buttonhole. For buttonholes, you can either use the Quick Select button or set C1. Of course, we have more options here. There are some keyhole-shaped versions, the regular C1, round ones, versions for stretchy fabrics, a bar tag for pockets, and even a darning program. Let's sew two examples from our list. I feel really lazy right now and just select C1. This is a buttonhole foot. It's a rail foot and you can slide it open. When the rail is open, you can place your button in there. The machine now automatically sews a buttonhole with an appropriate size for this button. Now, if you want to make it perfect, insert the thread through here. Then you can attach the foot. Place it under the shank with the button facing backwards. Now the next thing is really important. We've set the program and we've installed the foot with the button. But there is a probe up here, this little silver gimmick. You have to pull that down, otherwise the machine will not sew. Now you need a piece of fabric. I'll place it under the foot. All you need to know now is where you want the beginning of the buttonhole to be. There are these red marks on the foot, so you can exactly align them with the beginning of your buttonhole. The end is not so important. The machine does that by itself. It sews both stitching lines in one direction. That means the machine will shift back and continue sewing forward in zigzag stitch and will do exactly the same for the second stitching line. It will shift back and sew forward in zigzag stitch. It also stops all by itself. I'm still pressing the foot pedal. I'll just wait for it to stop. As soon as it's finished, you'll hear a beep. Lift the foot, take out your fabric and admire the result. Now you have to admit, this is really neat and uniform with both stitching lines in one direction. Now you just have to cut the buttonhole open and you're done. Now with the other buttonhole shapes, the principle is the same. I'd like to show you one more stitch and that is C5. This is a darning program. Earlier we used the triple zigzag for mending longer tiers. Now with this program you can darn smaller holes. And you use the buttonhole foot and the probe for size measurement. So we need C5. 2, 3, 4, 5, that's it. Oh, the machine doesn't like that. Let me start at the beginning. The machine sews back and forth, and as soon as it marks contact with the probe, it changes direction. So the machine does this darning stitch back and forth, and at the end it sews a zigzag stitch over the entire area. This is an automatic program for darning holes. Remember, with the mechanical machines you had to push the fabric back and forth by hand. So now it does the final zigzag over the whole area and then it's really tight. This is suitable for small holes. If you have bigger holes to darn, you can place 2 or 3 of these stitches patterned next to each other. There, looks perfect, nothing to complain. Now let me show you how to do a blind stitch. Blind stitch is program C9. So press the plus button for 9 and you need to change the foot. That means the buttonhole probe goes back up and we need our blind stitch foot now. Where is it? Ah, back here. Install your blind stitch foot, lower the shank and lift it again. Now you need a piece of fabric. With a blind stitch you make invisible hems in trousers or skirts. You need to fold the fabric correctly. Now imagine this is the hem. The machine stitches the hem from the inside and moves the needle over to the left, which is the folded main fabric of the garment. Here we go. And always guide the fold exactly along the guiding edge of the foot. By this you make sure that you always have the same distance. Without this edge, that would be extremely difficult. Now raise the foot and cut the threads. You see, I've practically basted the hem to the main garment fabric. That's quite stable, and when you turn the right side out, you won't see anything. So this would be the outside of your trouser or skirt hem. Not bad. And the seam on the inside is stable and strong. I'll now show you what else you can do with that foot. You can also use this foot for something else. You can do top stitching close to the edge. For that, I'll go back to stitch program A0. When you look up here, with stitch A0, the needle is offset to the left. So let's set that. That'll be down here. Now, first we need section A and then 0. So if you want to do top stitching and need a specific distance for that, you can use the guiding edge of the foot to keep your fabric edge straight and even. Look, the fabric is aligned with the guiding edge. And as long as the fabric is fed along the guiding edge, your seam will be perfectly straight. Of course, you can adjust the distance. That's what this knurled screw is for on the foot. Take it out, cut the threads. There you have it, a nice even distance to the edge. Because if your seam would be crooked or slanted, you'd see that immediately, since it wouldn't run parallel to the fabric edge. So the next thing I want to do is to show you how to sew in zippers. For that you need the regular A1 program, just straight stitch. And it's best to use a zipper foot. Now you're good to go. Now it depends which side of the zipper you want to sew on. This is the zipper. Let me place everything so you can see it. Now if you place the zipper under the foot, the zipper teeth or coil is guided by the foot. The zipper foot has a groove along its sole where the zipper fits in. Now of course you also need to place the fabric. Align your fabric against the teeth or the coil of the zipper and clamp everything with the foot. Of course you can do that on both sides of the zipper. That's really easy. You just guide the zipper along the edge. By this you always get the same distance and you sew very close to the zipper. What you also can do is shift the foot to the other side. See, this foot has a second bar here. You can release the foot and clamp the other bar without having to move your needle or the zipper. This is a two-sided zipper foot. Let's see. And this is what it looks like afterwards. A straight seam, perfectly parallel to the zipper. No problem at all. Now let's talk about decorative stitches. For this, it's best to use our applique foot again, the applique foot B. Lower the foot, it locks into place, and now we're ready to go. Now the question is how to access the decorative stitches. As you can see up here, there are 90 decorative stitches in addition to the utility stitches. Well, there are different methods. If you want to choose a stitch from somewhere in the middle, use the Quick Select button. Program number 35 is automatically loaded. So press this button. Now there's the 35, and with the plus and minus buttons you can choose higher or lower numbers. So you don't always have to start at 1. Now let's sew this quickly so you can see how pretty the patterns are. Now let me press the turtle button so I can monitor when the machine finishes the stitch pattern. So I've seen it and I can stop in time. The needle is automatically up. I'll take that out and cut the threads. Then you see what an excellent stitch quality this machine can do. So you don't just get any ugly or muddled up stitching. This is really neat and looks very professional. Now the other decorative stitches are accessed in the same way by using the plus and minus buttons. Let's do one more to show you what the machine can do. Let's choose a little tulip. Select pattern number 45. We're at 35 at the moment, and actually you just need to press the first plus button and you go up to 45. See, 2 little tulips, no problem at all. Let's take a closer look. I'll hold the thread tails to the side so you can see how pretty they are. Now there's something else. Let me tell you a few things about the buttons of the machine. I said at the beginning we have a stepless speed control. I'll just choose program number A1 because I don't want any fancy pattern now. When you shift the speed control to the far left, this is the maximum speed you can do. This means that the machine doesn't run too fast in tricky areas, and you can steplessly set how fast you want the machine to run. When I stop, my needle is always up. When you want your needle to stay down in the fabric, to turn your fabric, you press this button, lift the presser foot and turn the fabric. Then sew a little further and stop. But now the needle is up again. Press the button again and you can turn the fabric. Now, when you plan to sew many corners in your project, you can choose a different method. At the control panel on the right is a special button for this. If you want to always leave the needle in the fabric after stopping, press that. Now you can start stitching again. When you stop, the needle remains in the fabric. The needle is always down. At the end of a seam, you should always secure your seams. For that you can press the backstitching button. Or you choose the spot stitching option from the control panel. Just press it and the machine will do spot stitching and stops afterwards. Done. Raise the needle with this button, then raise the foot and take out your fabric. As I said at the beginning, this machine comes with 120 stitching programs. These include Antique Stitches, Nostalgic and Decorative Stitches, Satin Stitches and Quilting Stitches. Now, particularly when sewing decorative stitches, you should always remember the following. If you're using a single layer of fabric, always put a piece of embroidery stabilizer underneath. This is very important, especially when using stretchy fabrics. Also, always use super stretch needles with stretchy fabrics, preferably the ones from W6, then you won't have any problems. Now look, I want to do a simple decorative stitch on a single layer of fabric. I always use some kind of backing or stabilizer to ensure that the stitching doesn't tear or crease my fabric. These stitches are a bit more complex, they are a bit bigger, and of course they have an effect on the fabric because of the many times the needle pierces the fabric and pulls the thread through. So if you use interfacing, you counteract this effect and your stitching will look much neater. Now, why did I not use any interfacing before? Well, that's because I had 2 layers of fabric. So when you're using a stable fabric, you can fold it if your sewing project allows. If you're using the fabric in a single layer, always use interfacing and also the super stretch needles. Ladies and gentlemen, the W6 N3300 Exklusive can be turned into an embroidery machine in no time at all. All we have to do is remove the sliding table, slide the embroidery unit onto the machine, fold out the embroidery arm and attach the frame, like this. Make sure that the embroidery foot is already mounted, and of course it is important that we connect the embroidery unit to the machine via the cable. Then the thread tension is also important. Normally the tension is set to automatic. If you do embroidery on the 3300 Exklusive, please reduce the thread tension by 2 levels and you can start embroidering. We now have an innovation for the models W6 N3300, W6 N5000 and W6 N6000. We have included adjustable presser foot pressure. We can adjust the presser foot pressure in 1, 2, 3 steps. Normally the machines are set to level 2. So far this has always been enough and it's also sufficient for 90% of all regular sewing operations. But if, for example, you want to sew a buttonhole on a particularly thick fabric, then of course you need as much pressure as possible so that the machine still feeds the fabric. In that case, set the pressure to level 3. Then the machine operates at maximum sewing pressure. Level 2 is normal and what we've used so far, and with level 1 you have the possibility to get really creative. So you can even paint with thread. You can do applique work. I can show you this here. You can sew a really tight applique stitch. Since the presser foot doesn't press so hard on the fabric, you can move the fabric under the foot easier. I'm going to briefly show you this. We use an applique stitch for something like this. Select your stitch, position your fabric and you're good to go. Now you don't have any problems with this fabric. You don't need to pull or push to feed the fabric and you can of course reproduce any shape with the applique. As you can see, it's really quick and of course easy. Now I'm closing my stitching around the circle. Take it out, cut the threads and done. Make sure you cut both threads, it's no problem at all. Your applique work is finished in no time. That's working out just fine. The next thing you can do, you can even start painting with the machine. For that you need really stable fabrics, craft felt for example. You can use your regular zigzag stitch for that. Please pay attention with the zigzag, don't make the stitches too wide. So the stitch width should really be a maximum of 3 mm. Otherwise, the machine won't be able to process it. You also need to go down with the stitch length, somewhere around 0.4 or 0.3. Then you can start. Let's paint the P for pause. Let's do it. You see, you could paint entire pictures this way. Stop again. The needle is automatically up. Cut the threads. You see, it looks great and is fairly easy to do. Now let me also do the rounded line of the letter P, so you see that this doesn't only work with straight lines. For just as with applique work, the lowered presser foot pressure has the advantage that you can do curves quite easily. Always guide your fabric, and the easiest thing is to draw the lines on your fabric and use them as a guidance. Take it easy and go nice and slow to achieve a really smooth curve. Take it out, cut the threads, and done. There's the P for pause. No problem. Works really well. Of course, if you're feeling really creative, you can paint actual pictures. Birdhouse with a branch. Just position your fabric and off you go. Easy as ABC. As I said, it's best to draw the lines on your fabric beforehand, and then, of course, you can do something like that perfectly. This way up. The adjustable presser foot pressure also comes in handy with stretchy fabrics. With stretchy fabrics, you may have experienced wavy and wonky stitching. Your fabric is distorted while sewing. That's because stretchy fabrics have a certain give, and if the foot pressure is too high, the fabric is stretched out. So the lower the sewing foot pressure, the more even your seams will be. And remember to always use interfacing underneath.